tried to get it where you could see some of the scenery in the back, but when I was sitting on the other side of the table, um, I should have asked my friend if I could use his laptop. Oh well, I'm streaming from my iPad. But all you could see was clouds, so there's some trees. I don't think it'll focus. Oh, it will a little bit if I'm not in the picture. You see? They're these huge, the pigeons are huge here. And if you watch this later, don't feel bad that you missed it because it's 11 a.m. here. It's 11:38 a.m. here, which means it's like 5:38. So that means it's like 5:38, 6:38, 4:38, 3:38, 2:38 in the States. So it's like in the wee hours of the morning. I guess it is Memorial Day weekend, but that don't mean that people are staying up. So last time I was live, I don't know if it locked to private. No, because when I was live on when we were walking the wall at York, um, after I ended the stream, it said it would save as private. So I guess that's different than when I went live and it was like you violated terms and conditions somehow, and it locked the video to private. So if this one saves as private, I can always make it public again. I have like more space. Because I could always like push this even further back and have basically a whole table. I haven't had this much space in a hot second. I have not made it to any spiritual stores to get a new deck. I was kind of sort of deciding if I still wanted to do that. So, but I can look into all that later. Yesterday was pretty cool. Today was pretty cool. It feels weird. Like everything is nice, everything is really nice. But again, it doesn't feel. But even like traveling, like I wasn't really nervous. I wasn't really anxious. It's not that I wasn't excited, but also at the same time, I think what I'd be most excited for is like rest. Because I haven't gotten like an excess of rest in a hot minute. Um, and so I went to bed at like fairly later yesterday and I just slept today. I feel like I could have slept for the rest of the day too, but I decided to get up. So there are 4 cards on the table. I can't timestamp anything. Just kidding. I'm gonna pull out my phone and I'm gonna timestamp. You pick 1, 2, 3, or 4, or any combination of the above, and I will pull them for you. Now I can see what these 4 cards are, but I want you to not be able to see what these 4 cards are until you choose one of these cards. Not that it necessarily matters, but that's how I'm gonna do it today. So. Give me un momento, and I will have that right up for you in a jiff. So I was going up and down the lift, and when you go into the lift, it's like opening door. And so I've kind of been not practicing my accent a little bit, but and not in front of anyone else either. Well, kind of, sort of in public out and about one day, but like to my friend, not out loud. It is out loud, but not like out loud. You know what I mean? So anyway, and I don't know if it's entirely like hearing all the people as I pass by them. Um, but for some reason, it just feels like it comes a lot more naturally here, a lot more easily. I don't have to try as hard. It just sort of happens. Now, I'm still kind of sort of all over the place, because some people or some regions, the intonations are different, the accents are different, and various degrees of subtlety. But still, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a weirdo. I wonder if you could put an accent on a laugh. No. No. So anyway, I'm going to make a note on my phone, and I'll keep track of the timestamps here, and then afterwards I can just copy and paste them into the description box for your convenience. So, card 4. I guess I'll start. Choose a card. I'll show you the card backs. This is card number 1. This is card number 2. This is card number 3. And this is card number 4. So, also, I'm still going to do these live because if I do them live, then they kind of sort of like upload automatically. I don't have to sit down and wait for them to upload, which is really nice because I don't. I mean, I guess I do have the time today, but I don't really want to just sit around, and wait for a video to upload. So, and plus, it gives the late night stayer-upper a chance to come in, or one who lives on another side of the world. So I'm going to start with card number 1. Card number 1, you've an interesting card. I think these are all interesting cards. One of these cards in particular has been on my mind quite a bit lately, and if you've seen the video that is now private, you might know why. So don't pick that card if it didn't speak to you before, obviously. Or do, if it does now. Because, I don't know if this goes here or if I'm just going to talk about it. It feels like, so I've been to a few historical sites, and it feels like there's a context on history and spirituality in particular that I've been, I don't know if maybe that's the reason why I'm feeling a little, not weird or off, but just like history can be weighty. The preservation of it is gorgeous, it's beautiful. And the window into a time before our own is also gorgeous and beautiful. But I guess it's given me some things to think about. And I guess I shouldn't be too surprised because on my Michigan trip last year with the same bloke, it wasn't similar, but there were things that my mind would just kind of sort of wander to, I guess, in exploring new areas. And there were some historical places there too. I don't know how long I'm going to continue to do this, but the longer I do it, the more natural it sort of feels. So I may do the whole video like this, I may not, I don't know. But yeah, and then I started Steph Evening Sky Reflections, latest video that she put up. And it just made me think again of everything that I guess I've seen within the past 48 hours. And it really contextualized, I guess, the ego and the soul. Which is, it's like there's this higher ideal version of us that exists in a perfect world. But then there's the version of us that exists in maybe the cruelest form of reality, maybe not. But we sort of live in between. And so it kind of reads as the battle between the ego and the self and the higher self, the id, the ego, and the superego, I guess, if you want to get all Freudian. In a way that's just like, if you live in an area, or if you lived in a time where things were more chaotic, there was a lot more war, you just like have to defend yourself. Then to be in a position to have to defend yourself, but also to be one, thinking of the monks in Lynn's Farm, at the Priory. It's like it's an interesting balance and duality to hold. And it's not necessarily the one that chooses violence um, for the sake of whatever, but it's the one who, it's like the situation necessitates violence because of the defense of one's life. And then it's like, well, how do you reconcile that with a spiritual belief or with a religious belief or like how do you weigh that against the conscience, right? Because I don't know if people were necessarily made to be killers. All of them, I don't know. Some of them maybe. I believe, I guess, that some people are, I don't want to say evil. I guess the world that we live in takes all kinds of people. And there's a part of me that doesn't hesitate to believe that some people are born that kind of person. Most people, I would say, aren't. I'm sure. But I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, so it just put a whole interesting context on everything. Where sitting from my position, sitting from my room thousands of miles away, where I don't really have, I mean, I guess I did have a whole situation with, but it wasn't like life or death. Um, but I guess it's a different world. And so for just the Hierophant in general, I guess, to have become what it became and to have done what it did, it doesn't necessarily feel too different from any other parent trying to protect their child or any other person trying to protect their livelihood. I don't know. It kind of complicates things in a way, I guess. But anyway, I digress. I'm gonna put up a second timestamp because I don't know if that's specifically for part one. I'll leave it in part one because it came out after this one. So I have your card. How on your card is the Magician? Number one for number one, right? This is your card, one. And what's interesting, again, I guess it is this deck, but what's interesting is this focus on the wand lately. And how the wand was the only suit. No, because that was a different deck. That was the Prime Muse Tarot with the double death, the double everything, double majors, double court cards. The wand was the only thing that survived the procession of death. And it seemed like it was mostly because the wand was the only element that wasn't present. Okay. I do wish I had a third deck, so I may go and buy one, honestly. Because I need more cards. It's fine. Okay, there we go. I'll take these two. And then I guess I have the rest of the deck to shuffle if I need to. And I may. Oh, this is interesting. So your energy is very magician in nature. You have the Four of Hearts and the Ace of Spades. The Four of Hearts is adept of materialization, a murky mind or will, and clouded vision. The Ace of Spades is tapping into the seedable creation, understanding what predates all, and things that must remain in the dark. Now, things that must remain in the dark, it could be one of two things. I guess originally it was like mysteries that should remain mysterious. Information that shouldn't necessarily be available and accessible to all because of the weight of it, maybe the gravity of it, maybe the intricacy of it. Like it wouldn't be for all to understand, so it could be easily misunderstood by most. And then it could be one of those, if this is our Einstein, if this is our scientist of the Manhattan Project, where instead of maybe taking, let's say, a cleaner route, like nuclear energy, nuclear power, and we solve that, we work all of that out first, rather than let's make a bomb and drop it on people. Again, I guess going back to the whole conversation that is Power One, they do say that, and in my mind, I get it mixed up. I don't remember if it's necessity is the mother of invention or if it's war. But to combine them like I do with these cards so often, war is the mother that necessitates invention. Speaking of necessities, that's, I guess, the theme here today. What is necessary? And that could be both an internal, what we convince ourselves of as necessary, um, and a cloudy mind, murky mind or will is here. So it could very well be that. Or it can just be what life demands. Again, going back to the one who doesn't necessarily choose violence, but the one where defense is necessitated. Um, but the other thing of things that must remain in the dark, it's almost like there is no bringing them to the light because they are dark. So, um, it's almost like to bring those things into the light would create shadow because they're not supposed to be in the light. It's almost like there are certain things that maintain the balance, the strength, the integrity of a certain polarity or duality. And the polarity and duality itself, the duality itself is not polarized. It's just this and that. It's this and or that. It's when we sort of start to make things exclusively this or that, or it's when we put a context, a frame, a whole story to something that doesn't fit it, that is the introduction of I literally just had the word in my mind, distortion. That's the introduction of distortion. That's the birth of the shadow. There are things that are light that must remain in the light. There are things that are dark that must remain in the dark. And there are things in between that flow in between. But to establish those dualities, to establish each side as what it is, then it's almost like there are certain things that should be maintained as they are. Because then it's like you get bleed through or stuff stops making sense or whatever. I don't know. So you sit in an interesting position, number one. There is a sort of elevation here. So because of Avatar The Last Airbender, I think of lightning as part of the element of fire. And when lightning strikes, when lightning touches, it can burn like fire. Lightning could in some way almost be the mother of fire. And even going back to the olden days, and some people still do it today, but it's like if thunder would boom and lightning would crack and strike something like a tree, and the tree catches fire, it's almost like the replication of that to take a natural phenomena and put it into the hands of man is to strike flint and tinder. The striking of the flint is the thunder, like the sound it makes, and then the spark is the lightning. And then if it hits something, the tree, the tinder, it catches fire. And so this magician is very interesting in that way because he holds up the wand. He holds up the wand. So it's almost like it's taking fire back up to what it is in nature. But what comes out of his hand isn't fire. What comes out of his hand is the lightning, and it's the lightning that connects these elements. And it's almost like because our brains work on the firing of neurons and electricity, basically, it's like as this lightning arcs out and touches the sword, it creates a link between the element and him. And so there's also a link between these two elements through his hand, through him. And we do have an adept of materialization. I don't think I can change. Yeah, I can. Un momento, por favor. There we go. So I would say this feels like an intermediary energy, or it feels like an energy that is ascending in one way, but still not completely there in another. So that's the ing on ascending, right? Maybe not necessarily. It is ascended though in some ways, because it feels like the elements on the table are like base, 3D. If we put this on the 3 to 5 scale, because everyone loves the 3 to 5 scale, right? It's like on the 3D, there's this ascended energy because he connects to these in the way of primordial fire. But up here he is in the middle. And to reach to get that from the 5, he has to use the 3. So there's like this 3 and the 5, and then the 5 and the 3 energy. And if we're speaking of polarity, that's the 8. But so the adept here, the murky mind and will, the novice here, it's almost like we need to take this kind of polarity into like this sort of polarity. Like instead of it being a full 8, it's almost like it needs to be streamlined. So it's like a line over here. Like if you see 2 atoms in a bond, it's like there's a solid line and then you have these 2 bubbles. So a circle and a solid line rather than this huge sort of open circle. It's almost like it pushes out some of that stuff. I'm going to look before and after the 8 of Pentacles because that is the card of apprenticeship. That's the card of the student becoming its own master. That's the card of the student becoming a master in its own way. There you go. Ooh, interesting. I will put these back and shuffle them after I'm done. So the 8 of Pentacles, here's the Page of Swords. Which is interesting. And it makes me think of the before tarot, where the magician holds the wand and the sword. It feels like the closest, the easiest to master elemental energy to fire is air. And the closest for water would be earth. So earth and water would have an easy or a harmonious duality or polarity, because it's not dualistic, but there is the what's established between the pole of water and earth is fluid. What's established between the pole of fire, the poles of fire and air is fluid. What is established between the poles of water and fire is depends on the day, depends on the weather, depends on the time, depends on the season, depends on a lot of things. But it's almost like these are always easy. And so we have the Page of Swords here. And I guess what isn't easy about the Page of Swords is that what's easy about the Page of Swords is if you want something completely new, if you want something drastically different, if you want an experience, you are going to immerse yourself in it. You're going to go in with a beginner's mind. What isn't easy is if you want something new, but the only way you know how to go about it is old, then it might be difficult. It requires a fresh mind. Here's the Eight of Pentacles. That is the card of the student becoming a master of their own kind, in their own right, connected to the sun. And the Page of Swords, see, there's something in here. It's almost like there was a gift or an ability. This is the Page of Swords as a child that could effortlessly and naturally be in magical aligned, synchronous energy. This is the Page of Swords as an older person trying to remember what it felt like, trying to recreate in its mind and channel that into something new. But I would say this, the way that it's depicted like this is the case of trying to do something new with an old approach. Like this page is looking towards the past, looking towards a time where the world was different, a time where life was different, a time where they themselves were different. They also look on all of the things that happened to them. This Eight of Pentacles being all the ways that they grew up, all the ways that they are raised in, reasons that they stopped believing in magic or whatever. And so it's great from a contextual point of view. It's okay in a recreating way, but in terms of becoming a master of your own kind, I would say it'd be better to start with the present or look towards the future. Because the past is in the past for a reason. And if the past didn't lead you or give you something in your now that you want to continue into your then, into your future, then it's better off where it is. And again, it's like it's not the worst thing to look back and to have context or to get somewhere to start, but we should be focused in the now looking forward. And I think that's what makes the mind or the will murky. That's what clouds the vision. Because it's trying to take a whole bunch of stuff from a past time, from a past self, from the eyes of someone who had not yet seen whatever all of this is, and it's trying to bring that forward in a way that it just doesn't align in that way. It's like the pole has shifted. Things have moved, things have transited. And so if you try to put a star where it was before, it's not going to form the same connections because the rest of the universe has continued to move on. Time waits for no man or woman or person or animal or anything. Time marches on. And time is an illusion and stuff like that, yes, but also no. The way that we keep time, yes, but time itself, I'd say no. And maybe that also goes back to this 3D, 5D, 5 and the 3, 3 and the 5 energy. It's because it's almost like to understand the rules and the laws that govern certain bodies could bring with it a lot of advantage. Um, but it is not helpful for you to be in A, knowing that the laws are a certain way in B, and claiming, going to a court of law and saying, well, in B, the law is like this. In C, this rule doesn't even exist. And in E, it doesn't even matter. And the judge is like, but we are in A. And in A, we abide by the laws of A. And ignorance of the law is no excuse. And so it feels like we try to sometimes elevate ourselves in mind only, and to elevate ourselves in passion and desire and wanting it so badly only. But if nothing else changes, if the land doesn't change, if the earth is the same, if the water doesn't change, if the cups are the same, it's not going to be what it would be there because you aren't there. And so I say all that to say that while in some ways time isn't a thing, we live, a lot of us, to my knowledge, and maybe not, maybe I'm the only one that lives in a reality where time is a thing. And so to have marked time isn't the invention of a construct that keeps us bound and whatever, although it can certainly be used that way. But to mark time is to be able to keep track of days, to keep track of months, to know when a season is coming and to know when a season is ending, to know when the time that nature comes into its own, like with match sort of hours, to keep track of our own sort of progression through the years. It just is. And it is here. And some other, maybe in the 5D or the 10D or whatever, it's not a thing, it's more quantum, all moments exist simultaneously. But here in the 3, time is a thing. We continue to move through it, and again, like with this 3 and the 5, 5 and the 3, there, it's not that there aren't some aspects of it that are helpful. It's not that we can't pull in some way, some very magical way that is not for me to understand, but maybe that's your path and journey if you chose this. It's like learning how to be again, because everything, because of the lightning, everything connects within the magician. And so it is within his ability to do something that it's within his ability to serve as an intermediary, to serve as that solid line that connects the two poles. But it's almost like if it's like the 8, if there's too much bleed through, if there's too much overlap, if it's too wide, then it's like that polarity isn't strong enough to maintain the pole, to maintain its charge, to establish it, to make it firm. And so that's when it's like if we get triggered or if something happens, we fall back into the old. Like, I'm trying to believe and I'm trying to do this and I'm doing the manifestations and the affirmations and everything else, but I like it's hard because something happens and then I'm right back like, oh, it's this again. It's because the polarity needs to be stabilized. We need to be stabilized. And it's hard to root and anchor yourself in something that you don't know, that you can't see. It's hard to root and anchor yourself in something that you can only feel or envision or dream of. when you are so tied to, bound by, influenced by all that has already happened and all that has already occurred. So that maintains the polarity between the ego, the id, the ego, and the superego, the self, the higher self, and the ego, the lower self, the higher self, whatever. It's because your higher self wants this, but your ego is whatever. And it is possible for those two to work together. It's extremely possible. Very, very, very possible. And again, just like that's why I like to make the distinction between what is dark and what is shadow. Because dark is, light is, shadow obstructs light. Shadow is not, but it tries to be. I would say in either case that it's almost like you would be very close to a major breakthrough here. Because it's like the Eight of Pentacles is really close to the 10. She's working on her seventh pentacle. She only has one left to make. And whereas this is a contextualization of the past in a way of trying to recreate, trying to reattain, trying to go back to, trying to revert and regress in some way to this state of being, it's like instead we have this. We have the magician who sort of looks back and recontextualizes his experiences in a different way, not to recreate, but to understand. And so while she is painting her eighth pentacle, he is, it's almost like he's reaching into the future to make that pentacle into what it's supposed to be. Don't ask me. I don't know. That's yours. That's yours. So that is for you, number one. Interesting, though. The energies are very, very, very interesting. And also, I guess, it's like, maybe for you, it would be okay to look at the things in the past that didn't work. And maybe that will help you be open to trying something different, to trying something new. There is an understanding of circumstance that I don't think is necessarily here, though. And I don't know if it's entirely possible until you achieve whatever it is that you're going for. Because maybe it feels like after the success, or after a success, however small, that success brings with it, in the now, a new feeling. And so it's almost like after that, you've created in the present something that you can move forward instead of relying on something that was in the past and bringing that present to carry it forward. So in that way, it almost tips the scales more into the now. Taking from the past, putting into the now. And I guess you could take from past to now, from past to now, from past to now, until you're ready to move those nows into the future. But depending on how long it takes you to make all of your yesterdays today, depending on how many todays, some of those todays are going to become yesterdays. And so we sort of get stuck in the habit of like currently bringing things forward. But it can take us so long sometimes that by the time we're ready to move forward, we have to re-update, re-innovate the thing that we already did, because things are fast nowadays. They're not as slow as they used to be. But anyway, that's interesting. But again, with that Eight of Pentacles, with the eight almost being 10, with her working on the seventh out of the eighth, it feels like there is a closeness to sort of completion here. And it feels like there is already a certain amount of ability here because it's an adept of materialization. It's not a novice. But to come into a mastery of its own, there is something that it will need to take further. And maybe with the Page of Swords looking back on the sun, it's because you realize your ability to materialize. And so that's why it feels like something that you got to get back to. But it reads differently. It's something that you carry forward. It's something in the now, and situations and circumstances weren't necessarily what they were then. You have the Four of Clubs, understanding the unseen, grasping the subtle, and a sacred vessel. With the sacred vessel, like, you are different. And it's not necessarily, if it is for you, and if your intuition and discernment is telling you that I am completely wrong for your situation, follow your intuition and discernment. But it's almost like it's that Kinskiroi, the Japanese art of repairing something with gold to give it value. It's like you may view your vessel as sacred. You may view your past vessel as sacred, the one that was able to do so many things. But as a child, as an infant, things are a lot simpler. And so you may view your current vessel as like broken or whatever, so you try to get back to the old one. But as life happens, as things change, if we can repair ourselves now with gold, then we hold, we keep, we maintain the maturity, the growth, the evolution that we've gone through. And that's what makes our vessel sacred now. Sacred just being like an alignment, or sacred being a sort of state of resonance. And it's possible for you to get that where you are now and to move that forward, to continue to be this evolving vessel, instead of being one that sort of gets stuck somewhere. And time will keep moving forward, unless you find a way for time to stand still. But just to me, to some other people, maybe that's like perfect. To me, I wouldn't want time to stand still, because I like learning, I like progression, I like evolution, I like change. So your last card is the Six of Hearts. Maximizing or minimizing, limitation or support, look to the root. And this card, it's very like, things could be growing and in support of that growth, or it can be waning and in support of that diminishing. Things could be growing, but the growth is restricted. Things could be decreasing, but the decrease is restricted. When it's look to the root, like look at the self. Are we putting out limiting or supporting energies? Are we growing, or are we shrinking? And growth isn't always good, in terms of we don't necessarily want everything to grow exponentially. There are phases, there are seasons. As the moon waxes and wanes, it maintains, it sets the tides on the earth. If it were always a full moon, our planet would be very different. And even like those who are connected to lunation cycles, could you endure a whole lifetime of nothing but a full moon, or nothing but a new moon, or nothing but a third quarter waxing Gibbous and Pisces? Maybe, I don't know. But it's the season, it's the cycle. And so again, that it brings in an attunement, an alignment, a resonance. I think a lot of times it seems we deal in absolutes, and I'm not a person who believes in absolutes. One second. I'm not a person who believes that one thing is always right, another thing is always wrong, and I don't know, I'm a very like case by case, situation by situation type of person. So sometimes growth is good. Sometimes rest is good. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes more is more. Sometimes nothing is perfectly okay. It's fine for there to be a lull, or it's fine for there to be a moment where things are off or different or whatever. Because what does rest allow for? What does the lull give space and time for? What does recovery open up the potential for? What does regress and regression give us an opportunity to expand on or learn or explore if we sort of missed it the first time? And is it always like struggling to learn the same lesson? Sometimes no. Sometimes there was something in it that we didn't see because we were so focused on everything else. Because there was something more pressing at the time, something that required our attention. I found myself becoming an opportunist in every season, every cycle, every phase, every moment. So, you know, and I was gifted that opportunity by an experience that I mostly regret. um, while I was in my meditation class, and I was like, I don't have to guilt myself for this. I don't have to shame myself for this. I don't have to blame myself for this. And so I can just sit with me and ask me, like, why am I doing this when I already know? And I'm like, yeah, but maybe it'll be different. Maybe this time things have changed. Let me be a Pisces. Let me be delusional. I'm kidding. Kinda. But yeah, anyway. But even that, in that moment, it was giving me something that I needed that I wasn't even aware of. And so, although I mostly regret it, or although I guess regret isn't necessarily the right word, it's just like, why did I do that? There are many things that I gained from it. So, I'm not mad about that. These are going to be longer than I anticipated. But card number two. Are you ready? Oh my gosh. I'm going to timestamp really quick. Card two, you got the Knight of Swords. There's a lot of fast movement. I don't know if you're in a slipstream. It feels like you're in a slipstream. It feels like there's a tailwind because this night is so fast that the trees are like bowing and bending, but he hasn't fully passed these trees yet. So it feels like the wind is already blowing pretty strongly in this direction. It feels like you're in a purification process, but you might not even realize it. And the reason I say that it's because the clouds are a little thicker back here than they are up here. And so I'm thinking of the wind and how the wind would disperse a fog. And for the wind, for it to be thicker back here and lighter up here, the wind would have to be blowing in this way. It's like blowing the fog back this way. But the trees are bending in this direction, implying that the wind is blowing this way. And so when I think about the energy of something flowing one way while something else is flowing another way, it feels like as you're moving forward, there are things that are being taken off of you. And so where the last one had a clouded mind, or a murky mind or will with clouded vision, it feels like there's a certain clarity that's coming in here. And it feels like you're also trying to find the sun, because with the way his sword is raised. My friend was doing that to me the other day, where he had his phone. I was sitting at the table. I think I was looking at a menu, and he had his phone trying to like reflect the sunlight into my eye. But it feels like he's trying to catch the sunlight on his sword. I don't know if it's to blind somebody or if it's to, like, it feels like it's more to like highlight something. Like if there's a piece of metal in the fog. And if you, I saw that the other day too. Because I was like, because this is my first time with my friends since I had my cataract surgery. Right? No. Because a year ago we went to Michigan. I got my cataract surgery in December of 2020. Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. It was December of 2020. It's 2022. Okay, yeah. So I did already have it. But he's still like getting used to everything that I can see because my abilities are different. My disabilities are lessened, are different abilities. And so I was like, I can see as far as I can see now. There is no invisible wall where I'm so nearsighted that I just can't see anything past a certain point. And for example, we were driving down the road and I was like, you see that thing all the way back in the distance catching sunlight? It's like that. And so this is a very sort of resourceful, a very intelligent Knight of Swords. And it's almost like it's making me think of a falcon. Because it's almost like you have to be that smart. You have to be thinking at least a little bit ahead when you're moving that fast. Because if you suddenly hit a roadblock, if you suddenly hit an obstacle, you won't be able to necessarily immediately stop, change, turn, pivot, whatever. You might hit it moving that fast. So y'all know how I was like, it looks like he's like holding up his sword to catch the sunlight into like there's something metallic in the fog or in whatever direction, and he's trying to like with his sword move the sunlight to see if it catches anything, like a metal detector, but a shiny detector. I guess shiny things are more often than not still metal, so sure. The card that came out is the Three of Diamonds, and the Three of Diamonds is a school of glimmering fish spotlight a sunken treasure. So it's very like, and again, when I made that card, when I wrote it, it was this image of like a school of fish that move in a certain way where the sunlight reflects off of their scales, just like he would do with this sword, just like I could do with my phone if it were sunnier. There you go, I guess. As the fish move, the sun reflects off of them and it highlights something, that sunken treasure. The thing that's so easy to overlook because it's dark and at the bottom of the ocean floor or the sea floor or whatever. And then the rising of a new continent is also here. This is like really, really exciting energy. And again, it feels really resourceful, it feels really clever, it feels really present. as well, because you have to be present when you're moving that fast. You have to be in the moment. You have to be in the flow. You have to be listening to your intuition. So if you're riding on this horse and the horse is like, look at the horse. This horse is zooming. I don't even know if the horse has time to care about the well being of the knight on top. The horse has to trust the knight. The knight has to trust the horse because they're moving too fast for one to be concerned or cautious of the other. Because it's like, the slightest misstep from the horse could have it fall, the slightest whatever of the knight could have him just like fly right off of this thing. So there is a trust here. I feel like there's also an intuition here. It's like if you get the intuition to go left, you just go left because again, things are moving so quickly. And as you're moving forward at this pace, it's like there are things that are just like flying off of you. And so it's like you may be healing from things in ways that you aren't even necessarily fully conscious and aware of. Maybe until you experience something that it's like if you've rewired yourself. They say, if it takes 21 days for something to become a habit. So maybe there was a process of you changing your habits and you consciously having to do that thing where it's like if you say one thing, you have to counteract it with something else. Or if you do one thing, you have to do something else. But it's like you have moved something from your secondary nature to your primary nature. You just move in these ways now. It's not even necessarily a thought anymore. It's not even something that you like struggle with or deal with as much. But I don't know if you would know that because it's almost like it happened when you were trying to find whatever you were trying to find. It just fell off. And you didn't need it. Because it's like if you needed it or if it were that important, it would have been required by now. So maybe you'll experience a situation and you'll just go, wow, like I would have handled that differently a while ago. Or it might just be like, wow, like when did I stop caring about this? When did this stop becoming a thought? Like it used to occupy my mind so much. You get the Queen of Swords and the Eight of Pentacles. So maybe everybody gets the Eight of Pentacles. You see that? So, depending on what you're going after in the fog, depending on what it is, it's like you may be holding up your sword, looking for something that catches sunlight over here. And it might very well be the sword of the Queen of Swords. Her sword might catch the sunlight. But what she sees from her perspective is your sword catching sunlight in the fog. Because again, it's like it's dissipating. And again, in her card, it's thicker over here than it is over here. Over here, it's completely clear. It's dissipated by this point. And so they signal each other. And there's a certain calmness here, too, because that tree isn't moving. These trees are like, ooh, the roots on those trees are screaming. It's like, hang on, stay anchored into the ground. Like, ooh. And it came out with, it was the Queen of Swords and this Eight of Pentacles. The Eight of Pentacles again. It's almost like work with a purpose. Like maybe there's something that you envision already as you're working towards this. Maybe there's like a goal or a dream or a feeling that you hold in mind and it helps you to be this fast, this furious. And I know Eve was recently talking in one of her videos about intuitive painting. And this feels like that intuitive painting energy. Like her eyes, like the way it just feels like she's in this zone where it's like she's there, but she's not there. And she can just like see what it's supposed to be. And so she's just like drawing it. She's channeling, she's in the flow. She's in Soul, in the movie Soul, when an artist gets into their flow and they come into this space. Like she's in that space. So to you, I'd say keep doing it. I guess keep up the good work. I don't know what else there would be to say. Do you need advice? Do you, not that I'm necessarily an advisor, but is there anything that needs to sort of be said? I guess keep going. Keep up the good work. Know that it is like you're on the right path. Things are gonna work out for you. But it feels like, not that you don't know that, but it feels like as you are moving forward, the trust, all of the like residual things that are happening as an effect of this, like, see, this would be one of those really, really, really smooth polarities. But it's interesting because both times swords are spades, pentacles are diamonds. We have this earth and air. And again, we have earth and air. So earth and air aren't as diametrically opposed as, yeah, I guess they are, because water and fire, earth and air, but earth and air is a less extreme polarity. I've heard that earth is masculine yang energy. Earth is feminine yang energy. Earth is feminine yang energy. Yeah, earth is feminine yang energy. Air is masculine yang energy. So on the masculine logic, reasoning, processing, thinking, analytical, practical side, earth is the more caring, nurturing, feminine side. Air is the more masculine, exerting, planning, creating, building side. And so they both sit on the same side, but there can be this disconnect between, well, the disconnect isn't there, so I don't even have to talk about it. It feels like I'm gonna look at the sun and the moon for you after I go to the restroom. Cause I gotta go. Maybe I can hold it. I can't. I'm gonna go to the restroom. But it feels like the Queen of Swords is like holding something up, and that thing up here is also shining down here. So it's almost like if the Queen of Swords could put a little ball of light, or if the Queen of Swords could put a little sun in the sky to help the night get through the fog. But they can't communicate. So she puts the sun in the sky, hoping that the night, knowing that the night would be resourceful, practical, logical, reasonable, not reasonable, resourceful, analytical enough to do this with his sword. To know that he can use his sword to catch the light of the sun to reflect it to something through the fog. And even through the fog, that thing would serve much like this beacon. And again, they see each other because of that. He sees the light catching off of her sword, held perfectly still. She sees his sword catching the light in the fog. I'm blown away. Y'all's doing some stuff. I'm just like, wait, okay, I'll be right back. Enjoy this chair. Oh, there you go. You can enjoy the view between the chair, I guess. If that'll stay. I don't think you can. There you go. More or less. I'm back. Not that it matters anymore. Okay. Ooh, ooh. Oh, snap. Hey, Kirsty. You're in time, Lord. Hello. How are you? I don't have my glasses. Oh, I do have my glasses. I was like, I don't know how many chats I missed. How are you doing today? I woke up at like 11. Today is a rest day. Honestly, I just feel like sleeping. I felt like sleeping all day. I guess that's the thing about going on vacation. I should have taken like a pre vacation. I should have taken at least one day or 2 days. But with the way I do vacation, I would have still procrastinated and waited to the last minute to pack. Oh, Patrick would have done that. I should have taken just like 2 days to just sleep and then go on vacation because I was, and I guess my friend said as much because he's working Monday to Wednesday. Glad to hear it. He's working Monday to Wednesday this week, and then we're heading off to London. So he was like, Friday you can take it easy. Saturday, Sunday we're going to be doing some stuff, and then Monday to Wednesday you can just rest and relax. So I might catch up on sleep and stuff like that today and tomorrow. I did want to get out and explore a little bit, but it'll happen tomorrow. Maybe it's fine. So anyway, back to you, number 2. I kind of want to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. The sun can't always be out. So that's why I'm going to pull the sun and either the star or the moon before and after. I'm going to do the before on the side of the Knight of Swords. Because it'll be like this, but there's like the sun ahead of them that they're reflecting the light off, or there's going to be the moon or the star. I had a thought to do the sun, the moon, and the star. And then I was like, because the Queen of Swords is sitting in the space of clarity, she would have the sun. I don't know. Maybe I'll pull around the first one. I'll go from the bottom of the deck. The first luminary body that I see will be the one. And before will be on the side of the knight. After will be on the side of the Queen of Swords. Right? Because that's both of their connections to that. We'll see. I'll give it a shuffle and a cup. Can you hear that? It's probably obnoxiously loud. So from the bottom of the deck, oof, the devil, the three of swords, and the three of cups. With the 10 of swords, I love the 10 of swords here though, because the 10 of swords is the end to this cycle. So sometimes when the cards come out like this, me knowing that, everyone is, there's just a feeling. With the star card, it used to happen like this all the time. Because I would be like, the star is a gorgeous energy, but the star carries with it a certain amount of darkness. Because what state do we have to be in to wish upon a star? How powerless do we have to feel in our own ability to change and affect and impact our lives that we have to put all of our faith, hope, trust on somebody that is hundreds of thousands of millions of miles away to hopefully make something happen? I haven't talked about that side of the star in a hot minute though. But like there's a lot of stuff that this Knight of Swords is putting behind them. And it's almost like the Knight of Swords couldn't simultaneously be bound by whatever this hurt, pain, trauma is and accept the new. And maybe there came a point in time where the Knight of Swords realized that. So that's when they made this decision to end all of this, to do whatever they had to do to get rid of that energy. So that then when things come in, they can accept it instead of letting it go. And it feels like that state of flow, fluid acceptance is what's really going to it feels like that's part of the celerity of this energy. And again, it's like the slipstream is already moving in that direction. So it's like there's already something that you've established to put you in that. And then the High Priestess and the Six of Swords is under that. So the sun, the star, the moon, the sun, the star, the moon, the moon. Ooh, interesting. So before the moon is the Knight of Cups. After the moon is the Queen of Wands. This is really interesting. I would say that this is a mutable energy. I would say it's a mutable energy because on the side of the Knight of Swords is the Knight of Cups. On the side of the Queen of Swords is the Queen of Wands. We don't have, the Pentacles are outside. So it's the Pentacles outside. Oh, that's the polarity. Okay. Because I was saying earth and air aren't as diametrically opposed as water and fire. And then I was like, well, actually they are. But water and fire being the polarity, it feels like the one that's most difficult to navigate, or it's the hardest to maintain. And then after that is air and earth. And then after that is any combination besides those. So at the bottom would be fire and air, water and earth. So I guess that's the thing. There should be other permutations, I don't know. But we have the earth on the outside, the air on the inside, and then around the moon, we have this water-fire polarity. The Queen of Swords is on the Queen of Wands is on the side of the Queen of Swords. The Knight of Cups is on the side of the Knight of Swords. So I could actually like pick up my iPad and show y'all this. I might actually do that. 1 second. This is, I guess, the fun of streaming with an iPad. So that's what it looks like. Okay. Oh, could you see the other cards? Oh, well, if you could. If you could, then you get a sneak peek at whatever card you picked. If not, then it will continue to remain a mystery. Um, the moon is interesting just because I thought that the Queen of Swords would have had more clarity on who's coming. But maybe the fog is so thick that she can't see who it is. So maybe the moon, and the moon holds both the sun and the moon. Like this is the backside of the sun, so we still get solar energy. But the moon sort of being that what continues to remain unknown. Um, I don't think it's necessarily the thing that must remain in the dark. So, one way to read this would be in the matter of distraction. So, the Knight of Swords is holding up his sword to see what will catch the light. And under the moon, so maybe it is, we have this Knight of Cups holding up his cup. That is not this Queen of Swords. But there also aren't any clouds where this Knight of Cups is. So that immediately makes me think of an inn that welcomes weary travelers, a hot tub that soaks away all of one's worries, a subtle and sly grin. It's like this: I know your journey has been long, take a sip of this, eat it, and then you get stuck there. And then on the other side of the Queen of Swords is this Queen of Wands, literally like holding her own light. So maybe the Queen of Swords is like, well, that light could be what I was seeing in the cloud or in the fog. Now, these could also be non adversarial energies, right? Especially because the Knight of Cups is here, and there was the whole thing about working to be able to receive that which we couldn't receive before. And I'm leaning towards a both. So maybe the energies themselves aren't distractions. Maybe they are to guide the knight to the queen. And maybe this is a Queen of Wands that's having a conversation with the Queen of Swords. Because the Queen of Wands has mastered her shadow to where she can allow light and dark within herself. And so the Queen of Swords has to have a conversation with the Queen of Wands, has to have a conversation with the Queen of Swords, so that the Queen of Swords can also put her past sort of behind her. Because the Queen of Swords is an energy that can hold a lot of weight, especially of the past, especially of past not great experiences. The Knight of Cups could come along to teach the Knight of Swords how to receive, how to give and receive in a very non transactional way. And so it's almost like the moon is giving both of these energies, because it's the dark side of the sun, right? So it's almost like the moon is going in to those places that don't get much sunlight, and it is balming, it is healing, it is soothing. To make both the queen and the knight able to receive each other. But I think the distraction comes in when the Knight of Swords meets the Knight of Cups and decides that, I guess that's it. Or when the Queen of Swords meets the Queen of Wands and like that's it. Or it's like it's like the moon is the amount of time that it takes them to see whatever it is that is in front of them. And it's interesting because you have the Three of Pentacles basically behind the Knight of Swords and the Eight of Pentacles behind the Queen of Swords as they're coming together. And so that together is an 11 of Pentacles, which is a whole new experience. It's an entire experience outside of the one that we had before. I think the moon is also, it's just the unknown. Because it is an entirely new experience, it would be one full of things that you don't know, we don't know. And it's almost like it's the job of the sword suit to know. Like they're the knowers, they're the intellectuals, they are the thinkers, the reasoners, the logikers. But the Knight of Cups is saying, sort of like, receive. The Queen of Wands is saying, be. And to be freely and to receive freely and fully. So this could be you. As a Knight of Swords, that's gonna become a queen, and maybe one day an empress. Or an emperor. Or some combination of the two. And the moon is bringing you this water, fire energy. Okay. Oops. Anything beyond that is yours. What an interesting one. Oop, I guess they all decided to. Oh no! No! I need that Knight of Swords. You stay out here. The other ones go back. Interesting. What time is it? Ooh, the Fool with the moon. Cracked open some mead. I think tomorrow I'm gonna crack open Odin's. See, I feel like I need a new deck. If I open up Odin's Whisper, you know what I mean? I need something super like, hey. The Queen of Swords and the Empress about. So you are well on your way to becoming an empress. I think what the Queen of Swords adds to the Empress energy, because this Empress looks contemplative, is she adds a certain discerning eye. Oh, not a discerning eye. I think it can be easy to forget that the Empress is the Queen of Swords sometimes. I think it can be easy to forget that a queen is a queen sometimes. And like that a queen also bears the burden of a crown. And it's not just her job to sit around and look pretty and be trophy wife or whatever. That there are actual duties to being queen. There are things that she has to decide. And it's almost like the queen cares for the people, where the king cares for the nation. And both of them care for the people and the nation. But it's like who they sit as figurehead for. Most stereotypically, I guess, and traditionally. And again, like in an ideal sort of kingdom, both are loved by their people and both are respected by fellow nations or whatever. But that Six of Swords again. See, and with the ducks in the back, moving in the same direction, again, there's some kind of synchronicity or flow. I think also, too, the Knight of Cups and the Queen of Wands that you pass through to get to that Queen of Swords, they might be inviting you to carry yourself through certain things. So it's almost an energy of reparenting your inner child, but also it's like it's not just the inner child. There's this energy of like taking all versions or many versions of yourself through certain things. The Hanged One at the bottom of the deck. Really bringing in the energy of enlightenment and the energy of tranquility and an energy of peace in an otherwise precarious situation. Could be. Oops. Ooh, what was that? The Six of Swords. In reverse. I think that Six of Swords, I want like Chinese takeaway. I just got a taste for it, literally. I just got a taste for Chinese takeaway. I want it. I might order some delivery. Even though I have lunch today, it's fine. I think the Six of Swords in reverse coming out after that is just sort of signifying that you're going to be in a place to navigate what was previously unnavigable. And again, that goes back to the energy of purification, the energy of filtration, the energy of like as you're moving through things with the celerity that you're moving through those things, other things are just going to fall off to the wayside. It's almost like the process itself. It makes me think of patience in the crown chakra. Whereas like there was a download that was received through the crown that sits in the heart. And as it sits and unfolds in the heart, each layer of it that is revealed, it's almost like it holds a different medicine for a different part of the body, mental, emotional, physical, energetic. Like an extended release tablet, as your body, as your stomach acid dissolves through the different layers, it releases a different medicine or whatever, right? Or like one of those multi-layered whatevers. That's how it feels. It's kind of almost that energy, but not entirely the same. Because patience in the crown feels a lot more passive, like it just happens. There's a lot of movement in that Knight of Swords. So that's what makes it feel different. So, I gotta do a yawn to clear that space. Maybe that's why I yawn so much. When I yawn, I clear space. That's my body's natural way of clearing space. Okay. But yeah, I'm gonna move on to numero 3. And your card is one that I've seen recently. One that maybe you've seen recently. Excuse me. That yawn is just because I'm tired. So this is 1:31. We're at 90 minutes. I can't want it anymore. Something has changed within me. So your card number 3, is the Ace of Swords. Interesting, isn't it? Those who emerge from the forest before the fog lifts will find themselves in a space of mastery. It feels like this is the hand that is holding a sword and a crown and a wreath, or part of a wreath, or maybe it's holly, I don't know, that was gained in the labyrinth, gained in the fog. Slayer of the Minotaur. Perseus? Is that you? Or was it Theseus? Ooh. These images are like low-key kind of gorgeous. I'm loving that. Loving that a lot, actually. High-key loving it. So you get the 4 of Diamonds. Dawn before the first day of a new world, an old earth passed away, and a breathtaking sight. This makes me think of Tenair when she got out of the tombs of Atuan. You emerge from the fog sword first into this whole new world, into a world of clarity. You have triumphed over anything that you needed to triumph within, and you have gained this new crown, placed very near the tip of the sword. But it's almost like, since this is an energy of you navigating the fog and you escaping the fog, instead of this being handed to you, where there's so much that is hard to understand because the distance between the crown and the hand is vast, this was the spiritual test your strength meter. It feels like in the fog, the crown rose and rose and rose and rose and rose. And by the time you emerge, it's that high on the sword. So good on you. Dawn before the first day of a new world, an old earth passed away, a breathtaking sight. 44, 13, 2, 6, 1, and 2. I'm gonna see 111. There you go. You could be seeing 111. You could be the 111. You may meet the 111. Okay. I'm gonna need my glasses. Oh no. They keep doing this. Why do you keep doing this to me? Doing this to me. Doing this to me. Why do you keep doing this to me? 44 is the 9 of Earth. It's the 9 of Realms. An old Earth passed away, dawn before the first day of a new world. So because this is an Ace of Swords emerging from the fog, I'm going to take this along the thread vein line of another theme that's been coming out recently. And it's what lies beyond the 9. You are entering beyond the 9. And what lies beyond the 9 is more than just the 10, where we do it all over again. Sorry. um, it's almost like an increase in density or dimension. So, if the 3 of diamonds is the 3 of earth, is the 3D, the 4 of diamonds being the 4 of earth would be the 4D. And it's like from the 4th dimension, you see everything in the 3rd. More or less. Kind of less, but more. And I just watched a movie the other day, A Map of Tiny Perfect Things. And it's funny because that movie came to my mind at the end of card 2, with the moon being the backside of the sun, because it's like there are times when we see the moon in daylight, but it might be harder to see because it's daylight. It doesn't stick out as much when it's the only source of light in the sky. But the moon is there. And one of the tiny perfect things was like a super moon that you could see in daylight. But in that movie, she talked about how when she was a kid, she was obsessed with a 4D cube. And she even learned how to draw it, or a representation of it in the 3D. And she was like, from the 4th dimension, you can see all of the 3rd dimension. Just like, I can see everything on this card. If you look at it, you can see it, all of it. If you were in the 1-dimensional, if you were a single point on this card, you'd be able to see in one direction and maybe behind you, either this way or that way, whatever latitude or longitude of this card you would land on. If you were 2-dimensional, you could explore both ways to get an idea of it. But here in the 3rd dimension, we can see it all, just like this. And the reason why I say more or less is because if I had a really, 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 really big card, even though it is flat, we might still have to move, but we would be capable. Within our 3 dimensions, we could get on a plane, get on an elevator, get on a ladder, and get a higher point of view so we can still see all of it within the 3. But there's this energy of like emerging from the fog, from the mist, with the sword, with the crown that high. It feels like coming into a space to be able to understand the 3D in a way that we couldn't understand it when we were in it. What is this card? I'm curious. Bringing order to thought, proper delegation of tasks, seeing the internal through the external, and the it's the Queen of Clubs. We got air, earth, and fire again. She also said that if you were a 4-dimensional sort of being or from the 4th dimension, you would be able to see like inside of cabinets in the 3D. Because again, you could see everything in the 3D all at once. We wouldn't have to open it to see what's inside. We wouldn't have to, just like an ant. Maybe that's a bad example. I guess kind of sort of like an ant on a table, on a larger surface. We wouldn't have to traverse the whole thing both ways to sort of like map it out. We'd be able to just see it. And so there is, I feel like a very special sense that you are developing, or that you have developed, or that you possess. Oh goodness. I am sorry. And leave the sun to try defying gravity. That's it. I don't want to get blamed, but I heard it on the playlist. Ooh, Queenie Queenie. All the queens are coming out today. Ooh, what? The King and Queen of Pentacles just came out. Together. Speaking of mastering the 3D or seeing it from the 4D or going into the fourth dimension with the complete and total view inside and outside of the third dimension. I can't even like wait. Okay. This makes me think there's a card in here, mastering the game of life. I'm gonna look before and after that card. Mastering the game, the game, the game, the game, the game of life. Mastering the game of life. Of love, everything this world has to offer. I did not see it. I'll look through one more time. I'm pretty sure it's the first entry. Maybe it's not. I'm pretty sure it is, but maybe it isn't. I think it's either an ace or I think it's a joker, actually. If I can't find it, then it's fine. Then it's fine. If I can't find it, it's fine. No, where is it? Am I missing a card? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 54 cards. Every card is in the deck. I can't find Mastering the Game of Life. A blip of light at the heart of a black hole, progenitors in a primordial pool. 9 of hearts. Well, now we get our water. So we got air in the Ace of Swords. We have earth in the Four of Diamonds, the King and Queen of Pentacles. Fire in the Queen of Wands. Water in the Nine of Hearts. You got it all. I think what's also interesting with between the King and the Queen of Pentacles, it's like knowing what to hold and knowing what to give. Because the King sort of holds his pentacle, the Queen raises hers. One is sort of withholding, the other is offering. So this is like a Four of Pentacles and a Six of Pentacles energy, just as they're depicted. The 4 plus the 6 of Pentacles is the 10. So maybe if you were in the fog, if you were navigating the fog, potentially maybe there are a lot of things about the world that you would want to see changed, that you would wish to see changed. I'm beginning to think that this isn't necessarily, I'm beginning to believe that one may necessarily lead to the other in this series, but maybe not. Again, choose. Take it as resonates when you do. Always. Um, but it's almost like don't only focus on the things that you would wish to change. It's sprinkling outside. I probably wouldn't have taken an umbrella. I wouldn't have looked at the weather. I would have been wet. Maybe check the weather. You know, that's a thing to do. I'm like, oh, I'll just go, I'll walk around, and be fine. It doesn't look like it's raining really hard. I'll just show you, I guess. It's like spring. Can you see it? So, um, I don't know. I don't know if you'll be able to see outside the window, but a little ambiance ain't hurt nobody. And I will, if I can, make this public after, if it auto makes it private. Um, there are things, it's like, don't only focus on the things that you wish to change, also be mindful of that which you wish to bring forward. I think there's also like, the more you give, the more you get. You get what you give. And so I'm playing this game. It's called. I was telling Reem about it because I've sunk so many hours into it, into the Spire or something like that. And it's this game where you play as a character, you forget your memories, you wake up, you do it all over again. Um, but in the game, there's this hole in the wall. There's a hole in the wall of this fabricated reality. Sorry. There's a hole in the wall of the Spire where you get bleed through. And so it was like, there's a hole in the wall. You can take a card and leave a card. There are four different characters. Each character has its own color. Red, green, blue, and purple are the four colors. And each color is associated with features of that character in particular. Those colors make them unique. Now, there is a relic that you can obtain that gives you the ability to get any color card. There are also colorless cards. Colorless cards, sort of like, they can be played by any character, but it's almost because like they hold a certain sort of system of their own, and that system can pull from different colors if need be. Um, but it's just like the basic, the general, the Spire overall. Doesn't matter who you are, you get the colorless. Um, but so you can get the relic that gives you the ability to get a card of any color, including colorless. Or there's this hole in the wall and this random chance encounter. And at first I was like, ooh, like a hole in the wall. Like you take a card, and like I would take a card, but I wouldn't put a good card in the wall because I'm like, I need my good cards to make it through this run. But between runs, you lose all the cards anyway. You start all over. You build the deck back up. It's a deck of cards that you have that are like different attacks and defenses and skills and powers. Attack, skill, power are like the three classes of cards. Attacks are attacks, skills can be defense or other skills, and then powers give you abilities. Um, and so I was just putting in like defense. I would take a strike and a basic attack, and I would put in a basic defense, or I would take like a basic defense of one color for a basic defense of another color. And the cards were literally the same, they were just different colors. But I was like, ooh, now I have this color and this deck for this character that belongs to another one. But the last time I went to the hole in the wall, I was like if it resets in between every encounter, I could put a really good card in the hole. I don't know what character I'm gonna encounter next, if I even get this random chance and opportunity again. But if I do, here's a good card. I put in a good card and I lost. I made it further than I had ever made it before, but I lost. I died. Um, and I was like, man, I wish I would have kept that card. I wish I would have kept that card. So that card in the game, there's shields, and the shield, you have to remove the shield before you can deal damage to the enemy, and the shield works the same for you. But the shield expires at the end of the turn. So I had this card that would negate a shield and do 10 damage. So it was a really good card because towards the end of the game, There were some monsters that had a lot of armor that they kept. It wouldn't go away. And I was like, the melter would be perfect, but I put it in the wall. Thinking like, if I play any other character, because that card was blue, it was a blue card. So if we think about blue as the third eye or the throat, but mostly the third eye, there are things that the third eye can perceive, gain, and I guess this is where it's fitting into this Ace of Swords 4D view of the 3D plane. Um, but it's like there's this 3D view where because we can see everything on the 3D, we can see the inside and the outside, the seeing the internal through the external. It's like it cuts right through the defense, gets right to the heart of anything in the 3D, and that's where it deals the damage. Now, it's not necessarily about dealing damage, it's about an application of effort, maybe with the King and Queen of Pentacles. And so it's like it's able to maximize on its yield because it does less where it matters more. Um, 11111 on the clock just now. 111 minutes and 11 seconds. Um, but anyway, so I put in the melter because I was like, that card is specific to the defect. That's the name of the character. And I was like, this, like, there aren't any other characters who have this card. This is a really good card. So if I play another class, I'm going to put in a good one instead of putting in a bad one. And I bring up the hole in the wall. And maybe that's what this is too. Right? If you take something, you have to give something. But when you get something, we want something of value. So to get something of value, we have to put in something of value. But sometimes there's a fear that if we put in something too valuable, we won't have it when we need it. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. Well, it might be. You know, who knows? It's a roll of the dice. Speaking of roll the dice, hey Siri, roll a D100.
Okay, 28.
28. 28 is going to be, it might be. The 9? The 8. 28 is the 8 of water. We have the 9 of water here. The 8 of essences. The 8 of essences is interesting because the 8 of essences is the point where we reach a certain level of attunement and alignment with our soul, I guess, in the way of there are natural gifts, talents, and abilities that we hold. There are experiences that we had that give us different talents, experience, and abilities, or that build on those talents, skills, and abilities. And the 8 is all about learning how to take those deeper parts of us and bring them to the surface to suit whatever the situation sort of calls for. And it's the space of learning to master that. And then that also sort of brings in the energy of the progenitors in the primordial pool. And the light, the blip of light at the heart of a black hole. This is an energy that's able to pull from within itself what is needed in a moment, in a situation. And maybe that's also part of the mastery that's reached in navigating the fog. It's like maybe in the fog you learned how to be who you needed to be in order to fit whatever situation you were in, right? Proper delegation of tasks with the Queen of Clubs, seeing the internal through the external and bringing order to thought. So there's this, it's like being able to see something, being able to bring forward what that situation requires, giving what is necessary, Like that's all what was sort of learned in the process. So now with the Four of Diamonds, it's like with that understanding, the world is almost an entirely new place. The world is less of a place where maybe you don't feel like you fit in, or it's like you, everything is like whatever. It's like you're able to see things now, and you're able to do and be, and you're able to network and connect. You're able to find the things that you might lack to fill gaps and voids. And so you're able to do your part, but you're also able to maybe assemble or bring together those who are necessary to a certain thing. And so you come into this really gorgeous, I guess, networking energy, but it's a networking energy that allows each sort of person in that to shine because they all have a purpose in that. This is really interesting. And maybe that was the thing with the different characters and the hole in the wall. I wonder, because again, thinking back to the game, there's the relic that you can buy or get that allows you to randomly pull a card of any color. Or there's the hole in the wall where you can put in a card on one character and pull it out on another character in exchange. And so now that I'm thinking about the melter that I put in, the melter, again, it eliminates shields, but on the character that I like to play the most, the silent, that character can use poisons, and shields, like poison eats through the shield at the end of the turn. And so the melter wouldn't be as beneficial if I get a lot of poison on that one. But with the first one, I can't remember his name. Uh, he does a lot of like direct damage. So he can hit harder to get through a shield, but the melter would be perfect for him because he doesn't necessarily eat through shields. So you can use the melter to get rid of the shield and they'll do the damage. So there's also like, there's a lot of understanding here. And I guess that shouldn't be surprising with the Ace of Swords. But this understanding, it's like there's an understanding of the self, but also an understanding of others. And because there's so there's an understanding of the self, there's an understanding of others, and then there's an understanding of the environment and the situation. That's why it feels like it's like that mastering the game of life energy, even though I couldn't find it. But that's where, again, like the dawn of the first day of a new world and old earth passed away sort of comes in through this understanding, and it's an understanding that's gained by experience. And experience isn't something that you can just hand someone. You can hand someone an opportunity to gain the experience, but whether or not they get the experience and what they gain in that experience is partially up to the person. So I would say number 3 has become really good at learning themselves, learning others, and learning sort of environments. Has become good at pulling from experience gems, even if the experiences aren't great. And maybe once you become so proficient or so good at pulling experiences and environments and other things, it gives you an ability to see deeper. Oh snap, it's Dana. I didn't see you 1313 on your clock as you look. I'm so sorry. I'm streaming on my iPad and the messages pop up for like 5 seconds and then they go away. And if I'm over here, I don't see them. But hello, hello. How are you doing, Dana? Gotta run, but thought you'd send. I appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoy your day. So yeah, it's almost like if when you get that level of understanding of so many different things, it's almost like the core of a thing just sort of unfolds. And again, with that eight of essences, it's like there's this ability to bring forth reservoirs of strength within oneself, or to bring forth talents or abilities, or to heighten one's own abilities, to almost be super present in a moment, but to also feed through. It makes me think of, I think it was the King of Wands and the Starman Tarot. But this is powerful. Um, I would say to, because it feels like that might be an ability that is really developed in a very reactive way. Like already being in a situation, what is this calling for? What do I need? Who do I need? What resources do I need? The King and Queen of Pentacles are very resourceful and are not shy about trading, bartering, exchanging resources for resources, time for resources, money for resources, whatever the exchange calls for. There's no shame in reaching out or asking for help. There's no shame in having weaknesses. There's no shame in having things that you aren't proficient in or things that you lack, because it's not for one to be a master of all. But with a certain amount of humility and with a certain amount of resourcefulness and a certain amount of grace, I guess, one can attain or receive what it is that they need. But I say it requires a certain amount of humility, because if our pride exists to a certain degree, then we won't ask, we won't reach out, or we won't feel that we have something to offer. So again, it's like knowing what we have to offer and knowing where to sort of go to ask. Um, but I would say if that is something that was established in a reactive way, like finding yourself in the situation first, it would be to then move it into a proactive thing. So as you're wishing to see something built, as you're wishing to sort of like just go further or expand, or if there's a goal or vision or something that you have in mind, then it's like using that to accomplish all of this. So with that, I would think that the Ace of Swords would be a certain ability to then, from, it's very like blueprinting. It's very architectural. It's like this is the space we have, drawing up the design, the floor plans, everything, just kind of sort of like see roughly where all that stuff would go before you get the materials. It's very Capricornian in that way, or it feels very Capricornian in that way. But the thought precedes the thing more often than not. I could also see that type of person being very good in like the consulting world, or in like process flow and design, like industrial engineer, project management type of stuff. Just like knowing how all the pieces come together and stuff like that. And maybe that's also work, or if that's something that you're good at, maybe you'd find project management, or even event planning and stuff like that fulfilling, because that gives you an ability to sort of like use your resources and bring something together and pull multiple things together. Also, again, with the energy of mastering the game of life, maybe it's something that you just like sort of learn how to do in your personal life. I don't know. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the last card, which is another card that I saw very recently. It's a card that's been on my mind. A blip of light at the heart of a black hole, progenitors in a primordial pool. So I'm going to say 20505. You get the Lovers. And I've been thinking about the Lovers because it's like the angel is like, okay, it's time to fly because the ground is about to split beneath your feet. But also, one second, 20505. With the progenitors in a primordial pool, progenitors, Adam and Eve sort of being, you know, the first man and woman that led to the birth of all men and women. So that's how we're all related, I guess. Or like Genghis Khan having like millions of descendants all over the world. I don't know if it's millions or if it's like hundreds of thousands, but it's like there was a certain non-trivial percentage of people who can trace their ancestry back to Genghis Khan. I have an uncle who had quite a few kids, so I'd be like, there's my mom's side of the family. On my mom's side of the family, there's her mom's side of the family, there's her dad's side of the family, and then there's that one uncle that brings his whole entire side. He has created an entire side of the family with just his children and his children's children and their children. But anyway. The lovers, the lovers, the lovers, the lovers. It seems like you've called in some kind of elevator, maybe? Like the angel is going to take you to the sun that you envision and dream of. This is very much the energy of like, don't worry about how something is going to be done. It's not your job to worry about the how. Three of Spades, a complete restructuring of home, a breathtaking sight that redefines beauty and allowing one's soul to breathe. I saw this as the ground splitting beneath your feet and the angel coming to either lift you or offer you a pair of wings so that you don't fall into the crack. But because of allowing one's soul, because of this Three of Spades, which is, you know, ironically the Three of Swords, it feels like the ground is actually mending, like it's being sewn back together. I just watched Encanto on the plane and I cried at the end of the movie. Between, you know, it's funny, but it's like it's mending the cracks. Encanto was a good movie. I enjoyed it. And then we have the Five of Clubs and a 5 and a 6, but it's the Jack of Clubs. The day of longest light or night, a garment for all occasions, and filling a gap. Okay, filling a gap. Filling the gap. Then we also have the internal invited to the external, inner secret revealed, and cognition illuminated, with the Jack of Clubs. So there's a 3, 5, 6, no 4. 3, 5, 6. But if we move the I to the other side of the V, it could be a 4. So maybe this Jack, especially since it's seeing the internal through the external and an inner secret reveal, there's a fluidity in this Jack as an unnatural 6, or not a 6 that is a 6, that can kind of sort of like bridge us both ways. So this can bridge the 3 and the 5, but then it'll also bridge the 3 and the 7, or the 5 and the 7. So whereas the last one was a 3D5D, or whereas the last one was like from the 4 you can see the 3. This one, the 4 gets you to the 5, but the 6 gets you to the 7. Okay. How many cards? Oh, there's so many cards. The Ace of Pentacles is your first card. Very Garden of Eden vibes. Progenitors in a primordial pool came out, Adam and Eve being the progenitors of humanity biblically. And with what went down in the Garden of Eden, biblically setting humanity on a certain trajectory. Is there going to be like a new Eden? Or it's things done in the present that send ripples back in time, rather than just like the present moment unfolding and unfurling new futures, because that's the natural flow of time, the past into the present into the future. And as we make choices and decisions now, of course it'll open up things. If I decide to eat nothing but sugar for the next week, if I gain a few pounds, it's not to be, and I don't exercise, I don't burn the calories or whatever. Those are present choices, decisions, actions that lead to a certain future. Right. If I stay up for 36, 48 hours straight and I just crash one day, those are choices, decisions in the present that affect the future in very natural ways. If I decide to work out and eat better, become more active, and do things differently, that would be a present choice that affects my future if I lose weight, but past, it's like the choices that I made in the past to get to this point, it's almost like it undoes those. It counteracts. And so that's that's the quickest, easiest way my brain could come to sort of communicate how the present naturally flows into the future, but how the present in some ways can undo the past. And so we land on that kintsukuri. Kintsukuri. The Japanese aren't repairing broken things with gold. For inquiring minds, Google says 0.5% of males in the world are related to Genghis Khan. 3.7 billion males in the world. So the math is the working of that, which is that we can't do on a calculator. Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot of people to be descendants of Genghis Khan. And I think they can 3.7 billion males in the world, so 0.5% of 3.7 billion. Well, 50% would be 1.37 divided by 2 is 1.5. So somewhere like, I don't know. I almost did it. It's like 10% of 50%, or half of 10%. Oh, well, we can do half of 10%. 10%, that would be 0.37 billion, which is roughly 370 million. How does that work? 370 million. Roughly 370 million males in the world. And then half of that 10%, half of 370 is 265. No. 285? No. Yeah, 285. 185, not 2. So roughly 185 million men have alive today. have lineage that traces back to Genghis Khan. That's an entire nation. Some nations. That could be multiple nations. Some nations, depending on population. I guess I don't know. I don't know. That's a lot of people. Anyway, I think it was mostly like in the Asiatic region. There's a larger, like the percentage there is larger. Um, so, excuse me. I don't even remember what I was saying. With the lovers, undoing the past. Next is the hermit, and then the three of cups, and then the eight of wands, and then the hierophant. So we're going back because ultimately we start at 6, we end at 5. We have the snake and the cobra. Yes. So we got the lovers, we got air, we got fire, earth, water, fire, not counting elements for majors. All elements are present and accounted for. The air is in the 3 of spades, though. I want to drink Odin's Whisper so bad and just like, I don't know, try to get as full mystic as I can. Just go all the way out there. There are no handrails for this journey. We're going full Pisces. We're going to Neptune. Brace yourselves. Maybe this is like within the self. There's this deep fissure. I'm seeing like a butt crack. It's like a very round, a very plump bottom. But it's like there's this deep fissure within the self, okay? I guess if you follow the spine down the butt crack and then you get 2 legs. But we have 2 arms. 2. We have 1 head, 2 arms, the back, and then 2 legs. But since the arms are attached in the way they are, it's like the arms are an extension of the body rather than where the body sort of separates because we end in 2 legs. But anyway, there's this deep sort of fissure in the self. It could be a fissure between the self and the inner child. It could be a fissure between the masculine and the feminine. It could be something done or some kind of trauma that just separates and splinters the self. It makes me think of Reem and I think Russ talking about the coupling of the self a minute ago. This feels all internal. But we have inner secret revealed, cognition illuminated, and allowing one's soul to breathe. It feels like the divine is offering this Ace of Pentacles in some way. And the Hermit is going within to find a place for this Ace of Pentacles to take seed. I've only seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind once. But it makes me think of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, like, but in a way of like going through one's memories, it's like going through one's mental, emotional, physical, all of one's bodies, energetic, and finding this space where there is an alignment and a peace between all of the bodies. The Hermit is finding that place to put this Ace of Pentacles. Because when it rains in that space, all of the bodies will be in a position, because rain nurtures the seed, right? That's the watering of the seed. They will all find growth and benefit in that. It won't be like the physical body is moving forward, but the emotional body and the intellectual body and the energetic body are suffering. It's not, because it's a place within the bodies overall. Going like we're bridging the 3, the 6, bridging the 4, the 3 into the 5, and then the 5 into the 7. So it's like, it's not about just seeing all the inside and outside of one body, it's seeing the inside and outside of multiple bodies. And as we overlay these different bodies, it's the space where they all can benefit. Again, it's not a space where, in order for the intellectual body to benefit or proceed, then the emotional body has to suffer. So it's not one of those, is this head over heart or heart over head situations, environments. The head and the heart and the body and the soul, everything is on the same page. As it grows, all bodies grow, all systems progress and evolve. So the Hermit is going within oneself to try to find that area to plant this seed, or to find the location where that seed can grow and thrive. And because all of the bodies are in a space of thriving, there's a celerity and a quickness with which things can be received. Because now things can come in and it's not at detriment to one of the bodies. So it's not this choice and decision that we have to make. It doesn't slow down the process. And then it feels like with this Hermit card, because we see Shiva almost in the flesh tone feeling more incarnate, and then the blue feeling more of the deity or the deified form. It's like from that place where all the bodies sort of align, there's this spreading influence of this overall alignment. So we come into more and more and more harmony within ourselves. And so how this plays out is it's almost like the place where I started. So we're going to bring it full circle with the id, the ego, and the super ego, or with the higher self and the ego and us being in between. It'll be the place, it'll mend this rift between them, where again they can both exist as one, as two parts of the same body. So with all that being said, that was this. I'm not going to do a final message this time, but I do hope that you're all having an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment with all that you wish to experience in reality. And I just lied to you. I am going to do a final message. I am, in fact, going to do that. So, final cards, I'm going to say 2:24:24. I hope I did these times right, because I'm at 144 minutes. 120 minutes is 2 hours, so 144 minus 120 is 24 to 24. I'm pretty sure the math works out, but if it doesn't, I'm sorry. Timestamps are approximations, exactly. If I say it enough, you'll get it. On this channel in particular, timestamps are approximations. Maybe that's something I need to get. And At first, I was fine with just leaving them that way, but then I was like, you know what? I can watch this back and clean up the timestamp a little bit, especially if I miss one or two. And that's just the way I can put a little bit more effort into the things that I do. I can go a little bit more of the extra mile, and not be so lazy or disinterested in my own sort of creation and the things that I put out. Right? So I'm looking at myself right now. I'm staring into my own eyes, gazing into my own abyss. I saw this man the first day I went out when we went to Holy Island, Lynn's Farm. When we went to Lynn's Farm, there was this dude who had the most like piercing eyes, who had like the lightest eyes I think I've ever seen. And so I was like low key, like not obsessed, but like every now and then I would just see if like I could catch his eye. Not like eye to eye, but if I could see his eye. Timestamps are an illusion. I love it. Timestamps are an illusion. They are a construct made by the content creators and the people who watch them. Um, but he had like the lightest eyes. He had like light eyes and like dark hair. Um, Not that that mattered because I think even if his hair was like blonde or even if his hair was lighter, it wouldn't have mattered. But he just had like the lightest eyes I've seen, and they were so entrancing. Um, and I feel like since I saw him, I've been seeing these like shades of him. Um, and I guess shades of him are is kind of cruel or mean, but I've seen other people who have like similar sort of like facial features and hair colors and even stylings of the hair, but their eyes aren't as light as his were. Um, and so it's something that I've just been like noticing within myself. But yesterday in York, we went to York yesterday, and I went live from the wall. Um, but it was just like I would see roughly the same, maybe like facial outline or like haircut and hair color with the face, but the eyes weren't as light as his. And that's when I was like, I feel like I'm seeing shades of this man like all over the place. Um, this is an interesting run of cards. So we have the Ace of Wands, one of the aces I haven't seen today, with the Hierophant, a card that I have seen today, followed by the Five of Cups. We saw the Five of Hearts, but not the Five of Cups today. And then another card that we have seen today, which is the Magician, and a card that I haven't seen today, which is the Knight of Pentacles, and another card that I have seen today, which is the Queen of Wands. So it's like not seen, seen, not seen, seen, not seen, seen. Bottom of the deck, following this pattern should be another card that I haven't seen, and it's the Tower. We haven't seen that card. And then I was talking about that guy with a really light eye, or with really light eyes, and seeing shades of him all over. And then there's the Tower with the eye at the top of it. Interesting. I'm going to put all these cards back. And under this card that I have not seen today, if you're following the pattern, it's another card that I have seen, and it's this Queen of Swords. I don't know. Because when the Queen of Swords came out, there was the context of like whatever she's looking at, whatever she's holding up. I went for the sun or the moon or the star being a celestial body because the Knight of Swords was catching it. This was pile two, card two, if you chose a card instead of watching all of them. Um, there was some interconnection between them, but by the time I made it to, I thought there was some interconnection between the first to the second to the third, but the fourth one kind of sort of followed from the first three, but also at the same time, each could be a standalone, especially the fourth. Maybe that's just because of how, whatever. Anyway, I didn't think of the tower in this card being the thing that would potentially be above, shooting out all of these beams of light. And, but I feel like this tower, this would be a tower that came sort of like down here. Like she's kind of sort of made it through the tower, or she's above the tower, but again, that fits that fits the reading for card two. With the Knight of Swords moving through everything that it was moving through at the speed it was moving through it, perfectly fits that energy. That Knight of Swords could be the tower and the chariot all in one. And I would be lying, I guess, if I like there was a certain resonance to that Knight of Swords that I felt. And you know, a lot of times we read from our own experience, so that's not surprising. There's no shame in that. I feel like sometimes, um, I feel like I don't always read from personal experiences, but I've also, number one, connected with different people who have different experiences in my life. And number two, just in the process of watching movies based on a true story or fiction, I've gotten into the experience of allowing someone, and this is something that I told my journey buddy recently. Like when I listen to someone or if I watch a movie, just like I can suspend disbelief when I watch a movie, I can suspend my own self when I listen to people. So I can listen to a person and not be filtering everything that they say or all of the experiences that they have through my own experience. I listen to the person to get their take on their experiences. Now, if they ask me for advice, I can one, try to project my own experience and try to give them advice. What I like to do is try to give them advice that matches them and their experience. So that's one reason why I'm like, you know, that's one reason why I'll say, like, this energy is kind of rough. And if you need somebody to talk to, find somebody in your life. Because if I don't know you personally, I don't necessarily feel comfortable, especially outside of a reading space or a channeling space, even though channeling sort of invades all spaces at some point, I guess. But it's like I don't know you well enough to give you advice that I feel would be beneficial for you. It won't necessarily be beneficial for you to give you advice that would be helpful for me if I were in a similar ish situation to you. It wouldn't be helpful necessarily for me to give you advice that was helpful to someone else who was in that experience, especially if they're a different person. We all work in different ways, and so that's why we take things as they resonate. That's where our intuition and our discernment can come and fill in the gaps or whatever. But again, that's why I'm not necessarily comfortable just giving advice sort of to anybody, even though I guess you could say I kind of do it anyway. But these are general messages, so I kind of don't. You know what I mean? But anyway, when I listen to people, when I interact with people, be they real or imagined, I try to let them fill in all the gaps without me projecting my own experiences and whatever onto their story to make it make sense. Um, I don't know, because to me, it's like, especially if it's an experience that I didn't experience, I could go like, oh, I can't even imagine. Well, I do say I can't even imagine being in that experience because there are people that have real life experiences that I can't imagine being in because I haven't had those experiences. So I'm not going to sit up here and be like, I completely understand and relate with you when I don't. Now, I can empathize with you. I can try to imagine, like, based off of what you're telling me and how you feel, just like if I were watching a movie, I can try to relate to you in that way. And in relating to you in that way, maybe I can feel partially what it is that you feel, but like to begin to like to be you in your situation, having gone through what you've gone through, and to now be at the place and the point that you are in your life. No, I can't imagine. I haven't lived your life as you. but again, I can try to empathize, I can try to relate. Um, and in that way, even when I read, it's like, I think sometimes, like feeling everything that I feel in the space of a certain reading, or even when I'm talking to somebody, and then to say what I say, or for the advice or the outcome to be what sometimes it feels like, just get over it, just do it anyway. Even though, like, so thank y'all for letting me know that it doesn't necessarily come across that way. I try for it to not always come across that way. Sometimes it is, we just have to do it. It sucks. There's hurt, there's pain, there's a past, there's history, there's trauma. But at some point, we just have to take that step. Sometimes we have to allow ourselves more, or we have to allow ourselves different. And to allow ourselves more or different, we do have to step outside. So there isn't a lack of sort of empathy there. But again, there's a whole bunch of things anyway. That's the air and the fire that I had to bring to my earth and water. And sometimes I'll be like, I wish I could just be like all water and just be like, this sucks. I'm so sorry for you. But at the same time, I don't want things to continue to be sucky for you. I don't want your trauma or your past, your not great past, to continue to be your todays until all of your tomorrows are exhausted and you've reached the end of your life. I don't want that for you. But also, I do hold an understanding that things are difficult. Life is hard. It's not that easy all the time. So, as I am in between with you, as you are in between with yourself, and as you are in between with others, hopefully there's some passion and compassion and understanding that bridges those self, others, environment, going back to, I think, the third reading. I believe that was the third with the Ace of Swords, yeah. And then the King and Queen of Pentacles. Um, but again, then sitting at the space of the fourth reading, when we're bridging the gaps between self and others, pulling on other readings and pulling on the third and the second and the first, and applying that to the fourth, as we're not only bridging gaps between our ego and our higher self, where we stand in the middle as the self, or as we bridge the id, the ego, and the super ego in Freudian terms, I think it was Freud, as we bridge those connections between the self and others, as we bridge connections between the self and the environment, as we bridge connections in a third person way, the connections between others and the environment, and as we come into this greater, grander whole. Maybe in the first one, that's why looking back to the past or trying to find some golden time where everything was harmonious isn't necessarily the answer, isn't necessarily the way, because while things may have been great in the past for us as an individual, or as individuals, or as a section or a piece of the collective, it's to maybe realize and recognize that maybe they weren't that great for everyone. And if we want a tomorrow, if we want a today that's better for everyone, that might be one of the reasons why the past isn't necessarily the way to go. Or it's not for us to look back there and try to go back there. Maybe there are pieces and elements that we can bring forward, but there are also pieces and elements that might stay back there, bridging the first and the third. With the with the King of Pentacles being what to hold on to as we move forward, with the Queen of Pentacles being what to let go of so that we can receive new as we move forward. There is that balance as we sort of go along, and that is our march through time. That is what makes the 3D experience more quantum and timeless, I guess, bridging back to the first reading. But yeah, so the cards that came out, it's the Ace of Diamonds and the 10 of Diamonds. So from the beginning to the end of the world before we enter the court of Earth, from the beginning to the end of Earth before we enter the court of Earth, we have the Ace and the 10. Chain links, a divine codex, an arrow that pierces the heavens and breaks the clouds, Ace of Pentacles. A blistering heat and freezing cold that lies at the heart of creation, the truth of the heart made plain, and beginnings, the 10 of diamonds. Bottom of the deck is the 4 of spades, an arrow that swims through the air, forced pliability, a fixed vision, and a volatile space, really sort of bringing these two together. Because we have the arrow from the Ace of Diamonds, the arrow that pierces the heavens. But it's an arrow that swims through the air. So it's almost like the meeting of fire and ice at the heart of creation creates steam. And the steam, as the arrow passes through the air, it changes the density of the air. And so if the arrow enters a space that's more dense, then gravity might pull it down a little bit. Or just the density of the air itself may pull it down. But as it reaches a spot that's less dense, it may level out. And if it's even lesser dense than that, it might also rise. And it's like we are these arrows as we move through life. There are going to be periods that are less dense. There are going to be periods that are more dense. And so that forced pliability is when we are made to bend at the knee. We don't have to break. If we are particularly stubborn, the arrow might snap. We may find maybe that's like a dark night, but not always. Maybe it's an oxynate, the bright dawn, the brilliant dawn, but again, not always. Just because we bend doesn't necessarily mean we were intended to break. And I think that goes back to maybe the first or the second. I can't remember at this point. Or it pulls on the first or the second. I think it pulls on the first. Or the second, actually. Because that was the Knight of Swords, that as he moves through things, there are things that are stripped off of him that he may not even necessarily be aware of. It was the second. Because maybe there comes an opportunity, or there comes a time where we bend. But we are bent to see how we're not broken. And it's when we bend and we're not broken in spaces and places where we would have been broken in the past that we see and realize not only strength and health, our healing and growth and progress that we have attained, but we see our strength in a way that is our flexibility. And so then maybe carrying that flexibility forward to the third and the fourth, we gain malleability, where we can be molded, we can be forged into something completely different. But if we snap, if we break, if we're not malleable, then we can't become anything more than what we already are. Okay. I didn't necessarily plan to wax so whatever philosophical. I kind of like being on the other side of the world because it's daytime here. It's midday here, right? Not even fully. Yeah, it's like it's 2:21 p.m. So it's 14:21 for those who follow a 24-hour clock. But back where I'm from, this is 14 minus 6, 8 in the morning. When I started this at like 2.5, almost 3 hours ago, it would have been 3 hours ago. Oh, it's 2:22. I showed you the 111. There's the 2:22. You're welcome. So 2:14 minus 3 is 11, 12, 1. It's 1. 14 minus 3 is... I love how I've done all of this mental math. My brain is exhausted. My tummy is rumbly. I'm hungry. 14 minus 3 is 11. 11 plus 3 is 14. Yes, okay. 11 minus 6 is 5. So I started this at roughly what would have been 5 in the morning. Essentially, I love it being like late in the night or early in the morning where I'm from, but where I am, it's in the morning. So I feel like I get to bring a little bit of that lunar, late night, dreamy, ethereal energy into maybe, I don't know, more clarity because where I am, the sun is out. And maybe that's the backside of, maybe that's the moon being the backside of the sun that we saw in the moon card that brought the Knight of Cups and the Queen of Wands to the Knight of Swords becoming that or meeting that Queen of Swords in the second reading. So, can you tell I'm having a little bit of fun now? Can you tell I'm also like hungry and ready to go? Suck me. I'm starting to get like, I'm so hungry, I'm starting to get warm. But also my legs are cool, so that might just be me finally in the flow. I am in the flow. I need to be quiet. I don't know if there are people upstairs. Well, they might be at work. I don't know. I think I did this last time. I came into my friend's apartment and I was being, you know, a little loud or whatever. But it's fine. This is interesting. The last two cards are interesting. We start with Justice. I feel like Justice speaks to the delicate balance of all things. Going from the 1 to the 3 and the 2, and then if we take all that further, we kind of get to the 4, and it's all this like, it's bridging and mending the gap between the self and others. It's bridging and mending the gap between the self and the environment. It's in some third perspective kind of way, assisting in the mending of others in the environment to come into this threefold harmony between us and others and the environment and others in the environment because we share an environment with others. Justice speaks to the delicate balance of all things. And so the only way for us to be in a harmony with others, and the only way for us to be in harmony with the environment, and the only way for us to be a linchpin and the archway, the keystone of others and the environment from our perspective, is for our heart to be lighter than a feather. You know? And again, it's like that's the way where we can most naturally and effortlessly play our part in the harmony, in that grand harmony, the grand triune harmony. It's the easiest way to do that. I also love that at the point of the sword, you can see it, how the light cuts back into this sort of triangle, but it looks like it's actually a square because it doesn't cut straight across. But with this checkerboard floorboard, that could also be sort of an optical illusion because it's sort of like opening up. Speaking of all of this harmony, you get the 4 wands. Did someone say harmony? Did someone say coming together? Did someone say celebrate good times? Come on. No? Just me? We have the 4 wands. And then we have the King of Wands. And before I saw the King of Wands, I saw the Queen of Swords in reverse. So I was like, that is interesting. Because the Queen of Wands bridged this Queen of Swords when she was upright. But the Queen of Wands was helping the Queen of Swords heal her trauma, heal her pain, heal all of the associations that she holds with the past. She needs her self and the environment healed. The Knight of Swords needed his self and others healed. And so the moon brought the Knight of Swords, the Knight of Cups, to help him heal his others' wound and to bridge the self and others gap. The moon brought the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Wands, to help her heal the self and environment wound and to bridge the self and environment gap. The Knight of Swords being maybe the least, or maybe not being as personable and emotionally available and easy and readily to connect with others in a non-super intellectualized way, in a heart-to-heart way. The Queen of Swords being the one who has endured a lifetime of maybe being disregarded, overspoken, her contributions not being acknowledged, And then she comes into a position of power, and to hold and maintain that power and to demand respect from the very systems and institutions and people sometimes that did not give it to her, she has to hold herself in a certain regard. But because of that, she fixes herself in a certain dynamic of interactions, or she fixes herself into a certain set of experiences and dynamics and interactions with her environment that always requires her to sort of be on guard and on edge. And so that's why her self and environment gap is going to be bridged, because it's going to come a time where she doesn't have to yell to be heard, where she can be soft spoken, where she doesn't have to put on because of her experiences to be seen. And so maybe that's why the King of Wands and the Queen of Swords are sort of like at odds right now. But that Queen of Wands is going to help her heal into this, to the point where they can have a conversation. She welcomes the conversation. He is eagerly listening to her. He heals her. Maybe he does heal her. He helps to heal her other's wound as well as the Queen of Wands, teaching her that, to bring some of that shadow into darkness and to let that which is not her dissipate. To let that which restricts her light loose, but to own that makes her. And again, like, this isn't a dark is evil, light is good thing. Let's say like it's a certain assertiveness and there's a certain passiveness, and that assertiveness could be like when we have to take a stand, when we have to make a choice and decision, when we have to make a decision and an actual decision. Not one of those like, oh yeah, like I'll decide this and then later, depending how I feel, or if it turns out this way, then I might do something else and I don't really know. Like when something has to be decided, that's that assertiveness. And it's not bullying, it's not over projecting, it's not overshadowing. I need to make a choice and decision, and I'm making a choice. That's it. It's a choice. It's a decision. It's a decision more so than a choice. Decision implies a certain amount of like finality or stability in that. And it's not that a decision can't change, because if the situation requires it, a decision will change, and that's something that might be hard for the Queen of Swords to do in the environment that she's in, because if she changes her mind, what does she look like? What does she think others will perceive her as if she has to go back on a choice or decision that she made? And so now there's a mental fight between her doing what she now knows that she has to do and her continuing to make a decision that she knows she shouldn't make, but helps her preserve her image in a way, or makes her look less flighty or flaky, or look less like she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, if you get new information, it's okay to change your mind. If you make a decision and the world turns and spins and revolves and time progresses in a way that choice and decision is no longer viable, then it is okay to change your mind. It's okay to make a different choice. Life happens. We grow and change and evolve as times and situations and environments and people change and evolve, and as we change and evolve again. But anyway, that brings her to a space where her self and environment wound is healed. And her self environment being the Queen of Swords and all that she carries, at least from my perspective and point of view, it also involves others, but it's mostly in the environment, because it's not others in a face-to-face, one-on-one, now in the moment way. It's others in a way of like a history. Like if you're facing one person and you are engaged with that person, but you're actually like, this would be like me and you, okay? So we're having a conversation and something that you say triggers me in a way that now, instead of me talking to you specifically, I'm now talking to every person who ever triggered me in that way I'm talking to every environment that I've ever been in that where that trigger occurred. And so now instead of us having a talking conversation, it's me more not even necessarily talking to you, talking to a whole bunch of other people. That's what makes it the environment for her. That's what makes it more than just the other. The Knight of Swords is like, that's me and you, us getting to know each other, connecting, bonding, having a heart to heart conversation, being vulnerable in the moment. Me and you, no one else. And again, it could be like, oh, well, this didn't work out with other people. But that not working out with other people, it's like those are fears that may come up that affect me talking to you, but that isn't me talking to all these people that I couldn't talk to. You know what I mean? So, anyway, all of that, all of this puts these two in a space where they can now converse and they can talk. Because when she's in reverse, it's not possible. And like I literally just said, he's trying to talk to her, eagerly listening, not anybody that she's ever interacted with before. But she can't see that because she's still looking at him as if he's somebody that he's not. And of course, I'll take this in the ways that I need to take this. Time has changed. Everything happens in the way that it needed to, when it needed to. And so we have the Four of Cups here. I got some reversals in the deck now, but that's fine. Namely, the cards that I put back in the deck. But with the Four of Cups in reverse, I'm going to leave this in reverse because this started us out, I think, before one, or as I was reading one. No, this was two. This was two. This came out for two. The Knight of Swords. It's like it was the Devil, some other card, the Four of Cups, and then the Ten of Swords. The Devil, the Three of Swords, the Four of Cups, the Ten of Swords. These were the things that we couldn't accept because of the space that we were in, because of the gaps, because of the disconnection, because of the hurt, because of the pain, because of the trauma, because of the things that we don't want to repeat. There are things that we cannot accept because of everything that we already hold on to. And the Knight of Swords had reached that point where it was just like, in order to get what I want to go where I'm going, it has to go. Some of that stuff the Knight of Swords would have consciously worked through. Some of that stuff the Knight of Swords did consciously work through because the Ten of Swords was behind this Four of Cups to reach the point where they can receive. Some other stuff just kind of sort of, it was like an attachment through an attachment. So as we release the main baggage, everything that's attached to that baggage also falls off unless it has multiple hooks in different places. You know what I mean? That it was like residual, peripheral sort of baggage that we were holding on to because our baggage eventually developed baggage at some point, right? So, but with this in reverse, it's like we're now in a place and a space to receive. Again, how did he end up in reverse now? With both of them upright, they look at each other. Now they can receive one another in a way that neither one of them could before. So with him ending up in reverse, I think it's just to like, it's not just a you thing, it's not just a me thing. It's like this is something that we're all going through. There were reasons why old Kings of Wands treated Queens of Swords the way that they did, and so those Kings of Wands have to work through themselves why they would treat a Queen of Swords the way that they treated a Queen of Swords. We're all working, we're all healing, we're all coming into harmony and balance and alignment with each other. You know? So, with all that being said, thank you, Kitty Cat, Kirsty, and Dana, the Pink Peony Oracle, for being here. I will make sure that this one is, if I can make it public, I will make it public. I'm sure it won't lock to private. I hope it won't. But yeah, I hope you have a great whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, or way you find, and the way you need it. And I hope you also give yourself the time and the space to allow the different seasons and the different cycles and the different phases of your journey to not only be what they are, but to give you what they need to give you in their time, and to also prepare you for what they're preparing you for in the next time, and to also give you time to rest in between time, because rest is also important. The lulls are just as important as the activity, as the high, as everything else. You know, it's a time to breathe. It's a time to take it easy. And if some things sort of fall, let them go. You can pick them back up when it's the time, when it's the season. But as always, more importantly than anything else I've said in this, use your own discernment, use your own intuition. But again, I hope that you learn to differentiate your discernment from your fear, from pain, from trauma, from anxiety, from depression, from a lot of things. I hope you learn to differentiate your discernment from your pattern, and your intuition from the pattern. So, all right, I will catch you later. Bye. I'm going to end it this way so y'all can get one last view out of this gorgeous window.